Do you have any regrets about your actions on January 6th?
Well, January 6th was, again, we go back to it, but January 6th had to do with the fact that hundreds of thousands of people, and you don't see the pictures very often. A lot of the people here probably were there. January 6th, it was the largest crowd I've ever spoken to. That was prior to the walk down to the Capitol building. I don't think, and I've spoken to hundreds of thousands of people. I've never spoken to a crowd as large as this. And that was because they thought the election was rigged. And they were there proud. They were there with love in their heart. That was an unbelievable, and it was a beautiful day.
It's Thursday, May 11, 2023. I'm Anthony Davis from 5 Minute News. And like you, I'm just coming to terms with what I witnessed last night on CNN, which was described as a town hall. It wasn't really a town hall at all. It was a campaign video for Donald Trump and his 2024 election chances. I mean, this guy was given free rein for an hour on cable news to just say what he wanted, do what he want, rewrite history, and lie through his veneers in front of an audience of sycophants, these Republicans, and they claim there were some undecided voters, but that was clearly not the case. There was nobody there who wasn't seriously impressed with the man that had only the day before been convicted of sexual assault and defamation against E. Jean Carroll and had to pay a fine of $5 million. How do we even qualify this insanity as our reality? This is the reality of modern America, that somebody who is a twice impeached former or disgraced former president, who, to all intents and purposes, has ruined the country, not just for the people of America, but for the world. The world is less safe because of Donald Trump. And, he doesn't see it. He, yet again, gave his version of the truth, gave his version of the Trump presidency, gave his version of the American horror story. And this is what concerns me the most, is that when we give a platform to fascists and to insurrectionists and the most dangerous president in U.S. history, somebody who refused the peaceful transfer of power, who refused to leave the White House, who refused to hand over the presidency to the legitimate winner, and still is convinced that he won the election and lied about the election and continues to. We are effectively giving him the authority and the license to do it again, because he will do it again. And I have no doubt that Donald Trump, despite all of these legal cases, is still going to be the nominee, the candidate for the Republican nomination in 2024. And I also think he has a very good chance of winning. So I think we should bear that in mind. I'm not saying he's going to win. I'm not saying that Joe Biden's not the man to beat him. There's a good chance that Biden will beat him. But I just want us not to rest on our laurels and think that a fascist dictator is not going to get back in for a second term, because it's happened in history before, and it can happen in American history today. So let's just think about what happened last night. I want to take a slightly different perspective and view, and that is that maybe it wasn't all bad for the American experiment. Because to put somebody who now has become a pastiche of themselves, whose lies are so natural, they just spew out by default. And people know now that there have been over 60 court cases to try and see if there was any kind of election fraud, and they've all been thrown out of court, right? So he doesn't have a legal leg to stand on. And that was really the theme of the show, was him basically saying that the election was a fraud and that he should have won the election. And I think that people in the main know that that is not exactly what happened, and that the longer that he continues saying this stuff, the more it may be kind of just taps away at people's minds. I don't want to put a positive spin on it, but I recognize that to take this kind of emperor with no clothes and parade him in the street exposes quite how foolish, how incapable Donald Trump is. Not just incapable in getting to the end of a sentence coherently, because there was a lot of that last night. He really can barely speak English. But just exposing the fact that he is an angry, disgruntled, very negative person who is talking about and describing an America that the rest of us are not living in, He was saying things like our military is now terrible. I mean, people must know that it was only 2 years ago that he was the president. Nothing's happened to the military since 2 years ago. Do you see what I mean? It's like he just says stuff that has no value. And I'm convinced that there will be a proportion of the audience, the viewers at home, forget that crazy studio audience, but the viewers at home who might be undecided voters or might be Republican voters who are like, he's kind of lying about the military. And the same about the border wall. He said we finished the border wall and we were making extra. Everybody knows that border wall was incomplete, that he didn't really do very much at all. He was replacing border wall that was already there in the main. And then beyond that, there was like a few miles of extra wall built. I think people now are starting to realize that it wasn't the wall that he claimed and that Mexico never paid for. I think that people, it's beginning to kind of embed into the kind of American psyche that maybe Donald Trump is just saying stuff now, just saying stuff, trying to gain political collateral. So, of course, aside from lying about the election being fraudulent, he then said that he was going to pardon the January 6 insurrectionists. Now, these people have been through the legal system. These people have had a trial in many cases. These people have been, accused of seditious conspiracy, which is one of the most serious crimes that can be had. Is he seriously going to pardon Stuart Rhodes or any of these characters, these kind of far-right militia? Is he really going to do that? I mean, if that isn't exposing what kind of a person he is, then again, undecided voters or, I don't know, fiscal conservatives, they might be like, look, I'm not voting for this guy. And remember, the MAGA Republicans make a lot of noise, but I don't believe they are the majority. And I feel that, when, as an individual, someone goes into the polling place, into that voting booth and puts a check in the box, I just have a feeling that they're not going to do it for Trump again, considering that he is still peddling the same stuff, He lied about the death of Ashley Babbitt, this insurrectionist woman who entered the Capitol, broke into the Capitol, was pushing her way through a door and got shot. He lied about what happened. He lied about the person who shot her, said he was boasting about it. I mean, just not true, trying to turn Ashley Babbitt, an insurrectionist, into a martyr. He defamed E.G. Carroll yet again. And just 24 hours after the ruling in court, he continues to sully her name, to deny it ever happened, to say that, she made the whole thing up, that it was a hoax, and that she's a whack job. Now, if E.G. Carroll has any sense, she'll sue him again for that. And she has every right to do so. I mean, he's a disgusting individual. He lost in court. He now has the title of being a sexual abuser, and he still continued to abuse on live television. And then, finally, the thing that concerned me the most was Roe v. Wade. He claimed he overturned it. He claimed that he hasn't decided yet whether he will put in a national, a kind of federal ban on abortion. He's waiting to see what's best for the country, which is, of course, a total lie. He just doesn't know the answer. He's not equipped, doesn't have the intellect, doesn't have the capability to understand politically what would be better for him, because that's all he's going to do. He even said that Democrats abort babies at 7, 8, even 9 months of the pregnancy, even after they're born at full term. He says that Democrats are executing babies. I mean, these are flat-out lies. Unfortunately, Caitlin Collins did not correct him. Did not say, that's a lie, that's a lie, that's a lie. And if I was giving her advice, and no one needs my advice, but I would just equip her with those 3 words. That's a lie. And because it's short, and every time he lied, which was pretty much every other sentence, she should cut in with that's a lie. Unfortunately, what she was doing was, excuse me, Mr. President, could I just correct you? Could I? And, of course, that's not going to get her anywhere, because he's already in his lane. And her lane, I mean, unfortunately, the layout of it, the way that they were seated side by side, meant that she couldn't really see him. He couldn't really see her. It was all done for the audience. So she was a lame duck, really, in that setup. It was kind of unfortunate. So My overall feeling is that this is not necessarily going to promote Trump for 2024, but what this will do is it will remind voters how dangerous this man is and how the American legal and political system allows somebody who is being considered for all of these crimes, including, the insurrection crime, which is the biggest one that Jack Smith is looking at the moment. And, obviously and hopefully there will be more kind of legal issues for Trump between now and 2024 that will prevent him from running. I want Republicans to have a legitimate leader, somebody who is prepared to play by the Constitution and the rules of the United States. I just don't think Republicans deserve a fascist moron. I believe in having leadership on both sides, and I think that that is what makes up a democracy. But to have somebody who will not play by the rules, who lies, who is vile and aggressive and a misogynist and evil, that is not a suitable representation for any political party, let alone the Republican Party. I'm Anthony Davis. You can hear me every day on the 5 Minute News podcast and on Sundays on The Weekend Show with Midas Touch.